So I've done a video on Gigi and Jada and the whole situation surrounding another contestant, but out of the top 3 for season 12, I haven't done a video on Crystal Methyd, and I think that's a crime.
I'm that bitch, don't you know you'll never be no Missouri girl ready for the world to love me. I'm here to take the crown, make my mama proud.
And over time since season 12 has aired, I think the character of Crystal Methyd has only gotten more interesting looking back. Her storyline on the season is one of the best told when it comes to a person adapting in the competition due to the critiques. And she has one of my favorite competitor archetypes, someone who builds up a lot of momentum through the competition and peaks right at the end. We've seen this more recently with Anitra, someone who's probably going to get her own video pretty soon. Crystal wasn't the first to have this storyline, but she has my favorite by far, so let's get into it. Also, just want to say thank you so much for 90k. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing. It's so crazy to me that I'm almost at 100k subscribers. It's like a dream come true. I never thought I'd make it this far. I'm hoping to reach 100k by the first half of this year, and it wouldn't be possible without you, so thank you so much again. Crystal's journey in the competition begins with her entering the workroom, making reference to her name minus the last 2 letters.
Who's ready to party and play? Checkers, anyone?
I don't know how much I can say on YouTube. I think Methyd is fine, we'll say. Immediately, we see another queen in the workroom freaking out because she knew Crystal because they've worked in the same scenes together. Right away, Crystal is presented as a big jokester, and a lot of the other queens in the room don't really understand her that much, and their underestimation doesn't really last long for her. It's only in these first couple episodes, but they kind of dropped it from her edit. And we get reassurance that Crystal will be one to watch because Widow says it in a confessional.
These other bitches are feeling some type of way about Miss Crystal, but y'all better be ready. The bitch is fierce.
After that, we have the mini challenge where Crystal gives my favorite look of the entire episode. These first 3 runways for Crystal showed off her palette very, very well. Both the spring and fall runways were really chic, and the sparkle runway was a lot more character driven, and in the end you have one runway that's played really straight, one that's kind of in the middle, and one that's really campy. So like she said at the top of the episode, you never really know what you're gonna get from Crystal, but so far she's knocked all 3 of these looks out of the park. As for her verse and I'm That Bitch, it was good. I think she got the rightfully safe spot because there were just others that were better. For first impressions, I think this was a great episode for Crystal, and unfortunately right after a really strong performance, we get probably her weakest of the season. That's not saying too much though, because the world's worst, no one did really that amazing. Right before this performance though, we get the establishment of RuPaul's infatuation with Crystal.
Crystal Methyd. Kind of wacky, aren't you?
A little bit.
And you know you have the hair of El Jabbar?
I don't know who that is, no.
The rhythm of the night.
That audio clip of Rhythm of the Night gets ingrained in your head. They use it basically every single time Ru brings it up, and it's hilarious every time. It is so clear that one way or another, RuPaul just really, really enjoys Crystal. At this point in the competition, more so out of drag, but over time, we start to see Crystal hone it into her drag herself. She gets the critique that in the challenge, she faded into the background, which is true. Widow definitely stole the show, and it left Nikki and Crystal with not as much content. But arguably the biggest critique that she got all season was about her makeup in this episode and the previous one that she was in. It's very clear that Crystal does have a lot of makeup artistry and she is really good at makeup, but I do tend to agree with Michelle here. This week especially, it was a little much, so Crystal was going to need to learn to dial it back. When she explains that the big makeup makes her feel confident, we get a really good pep talk from Olivia Munn of all people, and I truly think that Crystal did take this to heart going forward in the season.
I would take on every audition and I would just have the attitude, whatever you want, tell me it and I'll be it. And that got me nowhere until one day I realized, what is the one thing I have that no one else has? And that's me. And you really have such a fun energy nobody else has. That will make the difference for you, not how much makeup you put on.
Amen.
This was definitely Crystal at her lowest point in the competition, and it kind of follows her into the next couple episodes, where at the time, a lot of viewers, including myself, were kind of writing her off as a competitor, though it was apparent that she was starting to make the improvements. She did pretty good in the ball, and we saw her tone down makeup. Her design look for this challenge especially, I really enjoyed, but outside of that, there was very little Crystal content in this one. And in the next episode, she has a pretty good performance in Grey's Anatomy, and is sort of in the top, but it's counted as safe on the Drag Race wiki, so I'm not exactly sure, but she did get critiques. Most of her positive critiques were about her makeup and how they're happy that she's switching it up.
I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you since you switched up your makeup. Crystal, it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
And this is starting to plant the seeds for later in the competition. But before she could capitalize off of the momentum, she has one more bad performance in Snatch Game, and this one was really rough. There was a lot that she could have done with Poppy, and I think she got some of the concepts down. The biggest issue is that RuPaul had no idea who Poppy was, especially in the internet terms.
She's got a robot persona?
Well, that sounds like a laugh riot.
And that's found out in the run-through with Ru and Vanjie, where RuPaul mentions El DeBarge 2 or 3 more times, and then 1 more time later on the main stage.
Meet El DeBarge. No, I mean not El DeBarge. I would do motherfucking El DeBarge. Shit.
Hello?
What, I mean, you need a brick to fall on your head? You are El motherfucking DeBarge.
Just really driving it home, making Crystal really aware of what Ru is looking for. And during these talks about self-doubt, Ru gives her a hug, which is pretty shocking, honestly. It was a big deal back in season 11 when she gave Plastique a hug and really comforted her. So when I was getting clips for this video, I was like, oh my god, I forgot this happened. I forgot how much Ru just really enjoyed Crystal. Crystal placed low, but was safe from the bottom because they wanted to cap off another storyline, and her runway was really great. Then we move on to Madonna the Rusical, where Crystal does good and is placed high. There's a lot of people that argue that Crystal shouldn't have gotten a high placement here, and I honestly agree with that. Some say that she should have been safe, others say that she should have been low, and I could see both. All I'm saying is I think Jada deserved that top 3 spot. But anytime you disagree with a placement, you start to wonder, okay, why are they placing them the way they are? And I think this was meant to be a pick-me-up for Crystal to show that she is competition and the viewers still need to look out for her. Where she's been struggling the most is in these acting and improv challenges where she doesn't really have a lot of control over the character that she's given. Crystal is a freak in the best way, and when she has creative control, she can really hone it in. But when looking at the past challenges, The World's Worst, Gay's Anatomy, Snatch Game, Madonna the Rusical, all of these roles are assigned to her and she has to fit herself into them. So I think this placement was partly because they just enjoyed her performance, it was entertaining, but more so this placement is used as a precursor to show that she still is competition. And then we finally get to see everything that's been built up to this point for basically the rest of the season. From here on out, Crystal is given creative control for basically every challenge, and I think it's seen best in the next week's episode, Drew. The magic mullet is everything that Ru has been wanting to see from Crystal, and the way that Crystal presents it is hilarious. 4 years later, and I'm still thinking of her hammering those wigs.
I need just a table that we can do science on. Oh, hot. Hurry. I am running around like a chicken with its head cut up.
She's finally able to take Olivia Munn's advice and apply things that she has in particular into her drag to make the judges love her even more. The week after, we see her basically do the same thing, use the mullet to her advantage. The thing that's been tripping her up all season were these improv challenges, and she's finally able to excel at one. It's showing growth, it's showing that she knows what the judges are looking for now, and overall, she's just having more fun, and I love to see that. But if there's any challenge to show just how insane Crystal is style-wise, look no further than the makeover. Crystal and Opal Methyd, aka Bert and Ernie, it's ridiculous, and it could only come out of the brain of Crystal. A lot of people at the time expected this to be Crystal's first win, but ultimately it did go to Jada, and I think that was the right choice. Jada and Crystal both ate this challenge up, but the transformation that Jada did was a lot more akin to what the judges were looking for. What the judges were looking for out of Crystal, though, is seen again here. She is honing her skills and showing them how she does drag, and the judges in these past couple weeks have finally understood it. At this point in the competition, all of the judges are Team Crystal, and I think she's the one that gets them the most excited for what she's going to do.
Tonight, I think this was her stepping into her own in this competition.
So when they then have to do one-woman shows, what is Crystal's idea?
A character that is a male exotic dancer? Oh!
And she ends up nailing it. The critiques that she got for this episode cap off her storyline perfectly. One last time, they're talking about her makeup and how great it is. They talk about how she's made a pivot in the competition and has been able to have fun and go full on weird. And like I said earlier, I think she was able to make this pivot because she was finally given creative control over what she wanted to do. It was always in there for her. The only thing holding her back was her own self-doubt and not being able to have fun. But after she understood what the judges were looking for, she applied it each week and they just fell in love with her more and more. Yeah, so she was in the bottom the next week, but the way they did it was basically a default bottom position because she had the quote-unquote second worst track record, even though if we were going off of critiques, Sherry should have been in the bottom. Because Crystal did good in the challenge, and in the rehearsals, she was confident. I think it was just the cop-out choice because production loved all of them so much. But one last time in this stage of the competition, Crystal was able to have fun and just show off how crazy she is.
Crystal Methyd.
Crystal is one of a kind, for sure.
Crystal has had the biggest improvement in this whole competition.
We move on to the finale, where the fans are loving Crystal as like the fan favorite, but it seems like a two-horse race between Gigi and Jada. But we see months after the original filming, Crystal has only gotten crazier and more creative, and this is shown in the looks that she serves, like the ridiculous piñata look, and her video performance to I'm Like a Bird. She gives one final lip sync that is totally her, and even if she wasn't destined to win the season, everything that she showcased made people fall in love with her.
I was doing a TikTok dance.
And I think that's one of the main things that I want to get into afterwards. Crystal Methyd has had such a unique impact on the Drag Race fandom. I think she arguably had one of, if not the best depictions on the show for a fan favorite character, maybe only being rivaled by like Katya. Katya might be like a rung or two higher, but Crystal got one of the purest depictions of a character, doing well and having fun in the competition, showing vulnerable moments, showing off all of her kooky and creative side, showing how much RuPaul loves her, subtly showing her learning what the judges were looking for and using her strengths to her advantage, and just having this charm that makes you want to root for her in the competition no matter how good or bad she does. And like I mentioned earlier, this edit was just pure. Every single time that Crystal was put on screen, she was put in a positive light or a vulnerable light that is skewed positive. So the way it's edited, it's basically impossible to not fall in love with Crystal. Her personality is just perfect for a feel-good edit on TV, and I think that's really amazing. And the creative side of her is something that was fully embraced, which is something that I do want to touch on. We see these other kooky characters when it comes to either style or personality, or sometimes both, like Tammy Brown and Charity Case. The list can be long, but a lot of the time the judges just don't connect to them on the same level that they did Crystal. So then Crystal has now become this gold standard in the fandom to other performers that are kind of crazy. There's people like Diabetti, who makes the most sense for being compared to Crystal.
They did the side-by-side and they showed a Diabetti quick drag photo where she looked scary next to me looking the best I've ever looked.
But then there's other people like Pythia or Dawn who've been compared to Crystal really early on into the season. Like as of recording this, Drag Race season 16 hasn't even come out and people are already comparing Dawn to Crystal. And in some ways, this could be looked at as a positive thing. I mean, Crystal is one of the most beloved queens in the entire franchise. But at the same token, all of these kooky queens like Pythia, like Dawn, like Crystal, like Charity are then put into a box of comparison, which is basically the opposite of what they want to do because their drag is just so crazy unique. I think regardless of how you present your drag, if you're compared to another drag performer, it gets a little annoying. And it's just so interesting that you have these queens who are really out of the box, but then somehow they're still getting compared to other people. So it just goes to show how strong that Drag Race edit is when someone is edited super well. Fans want to categorize other queens most of the time in a positive way to queens who they've seen in the past that are fan favorites. I just find it really ironic when people compare other queens to Crystal, because it's just taking these super different people and comparing them to someone else who is just super different. The only thing they have in common is how different they are from other people, and you can see the irony in that. It's just really interesting to me to see how the fandom ticks and how they react to things. I could really be analyzing this stuff all day. Crystal, like every other queen, is one of a kind. Her kind just happens to be a little more batshit crazy. But when the judges go full in on the crazy, get high off of the Crystal method, if you will, they create an unforgettable character, and I'm just so glad that Crystal has gotten so much love from the fandom. I mean, if you've ever been to DragCon, even 4 years later, her booth is still so busy all the time. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Ranking every US season of Drag Race should be out pretty soon. It is a very big video that I have to edit. It's a community ranking, so I'm getting a lot of your opinions. It's just going to be a long video to edit. There's going to be a lot of great content coming out really soon, so just stick around. And I will see you soon with another video.